Support for WCBU's On Deck comes from Jaguar Land Rover Peoria on Allen Road, offering personalized service to customers from their first visit to the store to when they drive their new Land Rover home. More at jaguarlandroverpeoria.com.
For the very first time, Illinois is home to federally recognized tribal land. That's just one of the things you'll want to hear about to start your day for Thursday, May 16th. I'm Colin Shope, and this is WCBU's On Deck. First on deck today, the Illinois State Board of Education has voted down Quest Charter Academy's appeal to remain open. WCBU's Cameron Cutinello reports.
The move follows the recommendation from State Superintendent Tony Sanders, who says Quest was out of step with state charter laws. Quest hasn't had the required percentage of certified teachers since 2017. Board member Shirley Chavaria says their decision does not discredit the positive experiences of Quest students.
Today's decision is not about questioning the validity and the experience that you've had. As Mr. Eddy has explained, today's decision, as a board member, we have to comply with the law.
The Peoria Public Schools Board of Education voted in January to close Quest after the charter failed to achieve 8 out of 11 performance goals. The goals had been established with District 150 during the last renewal process. Here's Peoria Public Schools Board Vice President Annie Reinking explaining the decision to close Quest.
The students at Quest have not served with the high quality of education that we set as a standard as a state and more specifically as a school district within Peoria District 150.
An independent hearing officer had earlier recommended Quest remain open, saying that the problems raised were there during past renewals. 6 board members voted with Sanders' recommendation to close. 1 member abstained. Quest could still ask for judicial review of the decision. For WCBU, I'm Cameron Cutinello.
Here are some other stories we're following in the WCBU newsroom. Plans to move Peoria's mail sorting to the Chicago suburbs are on hold through at least the end of this year. And the Peoria City Council has formally approved the creation of 2 new TIF districts with little additional fanfare. Plus, Illinois Republicans say they are glad the state is getting sued over a new law that changes how candidates are selected for elections. You can find more of these stories and all the details at WCBU.org. For the first time, Illinois has federally recognized tribal land, and this fall, all Illinois students will be required to learn about the state's Native American history and present. Peter Medlin has more.
175 years ago, Potawatomi Chief Chabanais left his home in DeKalb County to visit family in Kansas. He returned home to find that the U.S. government had illegally sold 1,280 acres of his northern Illinois land. The U.S. Department of the Interior recently placed portions of that land into a trust for the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation. Raphael Wawasik is a member of the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation Tribal Council with a family connection to Chief Chabanais.
He's my grandfather, 5 or 6 generations removed.
Wawasik recently helped lead a workshop in Naperville for Illinois educators to make sure they're prepared to teach the state's new Native American curriculum that touches on history, tribal sovereignty, genocide, and more. Rose Myron also helped lead the workshop with Wawasik. She's a non-native historian and director of the DRC McNichol Center for American Indian and Indigenous Studies at the Newberry Library in Chicago. The Newberry, along with individual tribes and other organizations, have spent the past year or so developing curricular resources for teachers, including as many primary sources as possible. Myron says students will have plenty of photos, documents, books, and other resources to explore. And the sources will range from the late 17th century to interviews they conducted last year.
We've also created half a dozen digital maps that map the history of Chicago in various ways with, Indigenous perspectives front and center. And then we are also conducting oral histories with community members. We've conducted interviews with about 55 people so far.
The curriculum is not chronological like you might expect from a history class because the curriculum covers a lot more than just history. Instead, Myron says it's organized thematically so teachers can weave in lessons throughout the year.
For instance, like one of the curriculum modules is about activism and resistance. And so we could have somebody, talking about different activism that they have been involved in the last few decades. And then also we have, within that module content about the Battle of Fort Dearborn.
The Battle of Fort Dearborn was the bloody conflict between Potawatomi warriors and federal troops in what is now Chicago during the War of 1812. Aaron Golding is a member of the Seneca Nation and co-chair of the Education Committee for the Chicago American Indian Community Collaborative, which has also helped develop the curriculum. He says as the fall approaches, they've moved from curriculum development to training and implementation with events like the recent workshop.
We've been partnering with ISB to release a survey for K through 12 teachers that will then gather some feedback about just where they are in their comfort level and understanding of Native history so that we can then use that information to help kind of tailor professional development opportunities for teachers.
And they hope to develop a hub website with links to resources for educators teaching this for the first time. And even though the curriculum isn't quite finalized yet, a small group of Illinois teachers have been piloting a version of it this year. Myron says they've reached about 700 students so far, and she says they've been really excited about the content, especially because it's Illinois focused. So far, she says the biggest challenge they're hearing from teachers is that they wish they had more time to dive into the lessons.
We're hoping to kind of create some pathways within the curriculum to sort of say, okay, if you have 15 minutes, you could do this. If you have an hour and you can do a whole lesson, this is an option for you. And just trying to create some like choose your own adventure formatting so that it's a little bit easier for teachers to implement. Last summer, Golding met with a group of Native and non-Native educators and community leaders to develop a series of principles that the education curriculum would be rooted in.
One of the principles that we came up with was just like commitments to Native futures and presence.
Especially the future. The Native people are not just a part of the past and present of Illinois, but also the future.
Native people are often not able to imagine themselves in the future because of a lack of historical knowledge through, the general public of Native histories. And so seeing oneself in the future as a Native person is really important.
He hopes that this education legislation, along with other new Native-focused laws and the federal recognition of the Prairie Band Potawatomi as a tribal nation in the state, show Illinois students that Native people have always been here, are here now, and will be an important part of the state's future. I'm Peter Medlin.
Now, before we let you go, today is a regular meeting of the Illinois Central College Board of Trustees. Those meetings are at 5 p.m. at the East Peoria campus in Founders Room 211A. And that's all for today. You can subscribe to WCBU's On Deck podcast on the NPR app, Apple, or Spotify.